SMCA uses, it's unlawful to injure, damage, take, possess any specified living, geological or cultural marine resources for certain commercial, recreational, or combination of commercial, recreational purposes. In general, any commercial and or recreational use that would compromise protection of species of interest, reef species, natural community, the reef itself, habitat, or geological features may be restricted by the designating entity or managing agency. Limited sport and commercial fishing. Look to the level of protection for habitat protection. High and moderate high levels of protection will afford an SMCA habitat protection, and it will count towards the MLPA network. Okay? If they go below that moderate high, they do not count towards habitat. Next slide. SMRMA is a State Marine Recreational Management Area. State Marine Recreation Management Area is a non-terrestrial marine or estuarine area designated so that the managing agency may provide, limit, or restrict recreational opportunities to meet other than purely local needs while preserving basic resource values for present and future generations. Restrictions, it prohibits any activities that would compromise the recreational values for which the area may be designated. Specified recreational opportunities may be protected, enhanced, or restricted while preserving basic resource values of the area. Fishing may be allowed, hunting is allowed. No habitat protection afforded to a SMRMA designated reserve. This is not 100% complete in the fact that you could narrow down the levels of down to the level of protection, and you could conceivably get the LOP to do it. But the SMRMA was basically designed and used by United Anglers to try and allow fishing. Catch and release fishing for the vast majority of part, and then limited take with slot limits. Okay.
We did some proposals at Catalina involving a SMRMA. We got slapped for it.
We got the map for it, and we will explain it. I got a pretty good explanation of how it worked. Okay. The SMR rating in this means there can be no take of live animals from the waters. SMRMA may potentially be catch and release only, yet to be vetted by SAT and DFG review. It's been vetted. They shot some stuff down. If it was catch and release for calico bass, they were actually going to allow calico bass. Catch and release got a moderate high level of protection for single barbless hooks, but then they made the caveat that it was going to be in 10 meters or less. So you had to fish 30 feet of water or less into the shallow. The reasoning being, if you're catching bass and bringing them up from 80 or 90 feet, they have a pretty good chance of the stress of the fight starting to bloat inflate the bladder, and they felt that enough fish being released on the oddball like that, and bass will probably survive, but sheephead will start to have a problem. Other fish don't survive the ride up. Bass are much more hardy. Bass go up and down the column a lot. Okay, so bass were not the concern. The concern was the bycatch. So you really have to be at like a bunch of us at the SAT meetings to catch all this when they go through it. And they were saying, you know, if you catch a gopher rockfish down there, or you catch a juvenile black sea bass down there, you know a 30-pound black is going to blow up like a balloon when you bring them up. And the chances of everybody knowing how to release that guy safely, they turned around and said, look, we're not going to let you fish deeper than 30 feet with catch and release and get any kind of level of protection, basically. So they broke this stuff down. I was there when they did it, and it basically shot down a lot of the catch and release. Catch and release that they do say would get a moderate high level of protection would be inside of bays. They can regulate it very easily. You fish the back end, let's say at Newport Bay. Fish the back half of Newport Bay, you could do it. Well, everybody fishing back there simply can't have any fish in the boat with any gear to play or whatever. So they also had it for guys who want to fly fish down in Mission Bay and in the back of San Diego Harbor proper. So it's possible we'll see a state marine park with catch and release there. The other thing that's possible is in a blue area, the State Marine Conservation Area, the SMCA, you might be allowed to surf fish with barbless hooks, catch and release for Corbina and barred surf perches. Because it's very easy to designate whether or not you're catch and release while you're surf fishing. You're walking up the beach, pick up a sand crab, get a ticket for picking up the sand crab, by the way, because you're fucking with the benthic species. But that's besides the point. So you pin it on, you throw it out, you catch a Corbina, you can let them go very easily. They can see whether or not you put it in a bucket or in your pocket or whatever it is you do, or if you let it go. So in that case, they said they can manage that. When it comes to the islands, they simply say Catalina's a big place, and to have any kind of mixed regulations of Catalina like that, it's going to be very hard for them to enforce, given the size of the island, and given that United Anglers' proposal had a slot limit. They were saying anything over 17 inches for sheephead and calico bass was to be put back. And the DFG's point was, look man, a guy catches an 11-pound calico bass, that thing's going in the well because it's a trophy, he's not gonna let it go.
Not always. It depends on,
Well,
change
we
the thinking
proposed-
of fishermen.
We proposed an answer to that one too, but they wouldn't buy that either.
Yeah, so the reality, this is the reality, this is what the DFG knows and understands. All right, this is the reality of fishermen. Guy who's burning fuel at $5 a gallon, and he's burning $500–600 in fuel to go to Catalina. If he catches a 10-pound calico, it's going in the well. I'm talking about your average guy, he's going in the well. That's the reality of it. And they say, thing is, there's no way to enforce it. There's no way for us to say, well, did you get it in here, or did you not get it in here? Hell, I caught the thing over there. Caught it at Santa Barbara Island earlier this morning and came over here. They have no way to prove you were at Clemente or not. So they said, this is the problem, is the unenforceability of the open ocean. It's either it's closed, or it's open, or there's a size limit, and that's it. But they can't have a mixed size limit. You can't have a mixed size slot limit here and then no slot limit here. This was this was the science advisory team's guidance on this stuff. They said it's out of our hands. They deferred it to the DFG. The DFG agents, plain and simple, the agents came back and said, we want these guidelines to be very simple because we don't want fishermen to make themselves into criminals for ignorance of the law. This was it, plain and simple. The average guy fishing is not that up on the regs, and they know it. And this is a fact of life. So the DFG said we simply want to minimize this. There's too many part-time fishermen who are not involved in the process. They don't know half of what we know. And if the average Joe that goes out there and goes fishing catches a 10-pound calico bass, it's done. Hoo-hoo! Hero. And that's it. So that's what happened with the Smyrna. So at this point, Smyrna, the one place that a Smyrna is allowed is Oxnard Harbor. There's hunting up at the upper end. But you know, that has an SMR level protection inside of it. So you shoot a duck and he drops down dead. You shoot the sea duck and he hits the water, right? And he's dead. Your dog can go out and retrieve him. You know, if that duck hits the water live, you can't take anything live out of the water. You got to hold your dog back supposedly till the duck dies, and then the dog can reel it in for you. Bite on that fish.
This is
Smyrna.
no. I do a lot of duck hunting. But you said Oxford?
No, my bad. Channel Islands Harbor. Which one is it?
You're talking Magoo Lagoon.
Magoo Lagoon has the Smyrna, right? Is it Magoo Lagoon that has the Smyrna?
And Morro Bay has it.
Morro Bay, that's the one I'm thinking of.
Morro Bay is
Morro Bay Smyrna. Morro Bay Smyrna, that's right. Morro Bay
Okay.
Smyrna.
But Elkhorn Slough and,
Right. There we go,
is
okay.
not a Smyrna, and yet they let duck hunting go on in there.
Right,
And yet half of Morro Bay is closed to duck hunting, but it's a Smyrna.
right. Yeah,
The
so
rules are not consistent.
So, yeah, the rules are not consistent. This is what the DFG says, is we really want clear, concise rules. We don't want fishermen to inadvertently become criminals. You know, they don't want, the DFG does not want that. They say they want ease of enforcement and they want ease of understanding of the laws. We have the most complicated fishery laws on earth for recreational fishing, bar none. And the state of
And they're making
California.
it worse.
Right, right, exactly. And they're saying we want to minimize this because they know they got problems.
They're unhappy with the
Yeah,
87
they're
pages of
unhappy.
regs.